Good evening, and welcome to the 19th installment of my reading of S. Morgenstern's classic, The Princess Bride. Now let's see, where were we? Sitting on the rock. Vizzini found him. Here we go. Whatever Vizzini said, Fezzik did. And if that meant crushing the head of the man in black, so be it. But not by ambush. Not the coward's way. Nothing unsportsmanlike. His parents had always taught him to go by the rules. And Fezzik stood in shadow, and the great rock was tight in his hand, and he could hear the footsteps of the man in black coming nearer. Nearer. Fezzik leaped from hiding and threw the rock with incredible power and perfect accuracy. It smashed onto a boulder a foot away from the face of the man in black. "I did that on purpose," Fezzik said then, picking up another rock, holding it ready. "I didn't have to miss." "I believe you," the man in black said. They stood facing each other on the narrow mountain path. "Now what happens?" asked the man in black. "We face each other like God intended," Fezzik said. "No tricks, no weapons. Skill against skill alone." "You mean you'll put down your rock and I'll put down my sword and we'll try to kill each other like civilized people, is that it?" "If you'd rather, I can kill you now," Fezzik said gently, and he raised the rock to throw. "I'm giving you a chance." "So you are, and I accept it," said the man in black, and he began to take off his sword and scabbard. "Although, frankly, I think the odds are slightly in your favor at hand fighting." "I tell you what I tell everybody," Fezzik explained. "I cannot help being the biggest and strongest. It's not my fault." "I'm not blaming you," said the man in black. "Let's get to it then," Fezzik said, and he dropped his rock and got into fighting position, watching as the man in black slowly moved toward him. For a moment, Fezzik felt almost wistful. He was clearly a good fellow, even if he had killed Inigo. He didn't complain or try and beg and bribe. He just accepted his fate. No complaining. Nothing like that. Obviously, a criminal of character. Was he a criminal, though, Fezzik wondered? Surely the mask would indicate that. Or was it worse than that? Was he disfigured? Was his face burned away by acid, perhaps? Or perhaps born hideous? "Why do you wear a mask and hood?" Fezzik asked. "I think everybody will in the near future," was the man in black's reply. "They're terribly comfortable." They faced each other on the mountain path. There was a moment's pause, then they engaged. Fezzik let the man in black fiddle around for a bit, tested the man's strength, which was considerable for someone who wasn't a giant, and he let the man in black feint and dodge and try to hold here and hold there. Then, when he was quite sure the man in black would not go to his maker embarrassed, Fezzik locked his arms tight around. Fezzik lifted. And squeezed. And squeezed. Then he took the remains of the man in black, snapped him one way, snapped him the other, cracked him with one hand in the neck, with the other at the spine base, locked his legs up, rolled his limp arms around them, and tossed the entire bundle of what had once been human into a nearby crevasse. That was the theory, anyway. In fact, what happened was this. Fezzik lifted and squeezed, and the man in black slipped free. Thought Fezzik. "That certainly was a surprise. I thought for sure I had him." "You're very quick," Fezzik complimented. "And a good thing, too," said the man in black. Then they engaged again. This time Fezzik did not give the man in black a chance to fiddle. He just grabbed him, swung him around his head once, twice, smashed his skull against the nearest boulder, pounded him, pummeled him, gave him a final squeeze for good measure, and tossed the remains of what had once been alive into a nearby crevasse. Those were his intentions, anyway. In actuality, he never even got through the grabbing part with much success, because no sooner had Fezzik's great hands reached out that the man in black dropped and spun and twisted and was loose and free and still quite alive. "I don't understand a thing that's happening," Fezzik thought. "Could I be losing my strength? Could there be a mountain disease that takes your strength? There was a desert disease that took my parents' strength. That must be it. I must have caught a plague. Because if that is it, why isn't he weak? No, I must still be strong. There has to be something else. Now, what could it be? Suddenly he knew. He had not fought against one man in so long. He had all but forgotten how. He had been fighting groups and gangs and bunches for so many years that the idea of having but one single opponent was slow in making itself known to him. Because you fought them entirely differently. When there was 12 against you, you made certain moves, tried certain holds, acted in certain ways. When there was but one, you had to completely readjust yourself. Quickly now, Fezzik went back through time. And how had he fought the champion of Sandiki? He flashed through that fight in his mind, then reminded himself of all the other victories against other champions. The man from Isper, and Samal, and Baloo, and Zile. He remembered fleeing Constantinople because he had beaten their champion so quickly, so easily. Yes, Fezzik thought. Of course. And suddenly he readjusted his style to what it had once been. But by that time, the man in black had him by the throat. The man in black was riding him now, and his arms were locked across Fezzik's windpipe, one in front, one behind. Fezzik reached back, but the man in black was hard to grasp. Fezzik could not get his arms around to his back and dislodge the enemy. Fezzik ran at a boulder and at the last moment spun around so that the man in black received the main force of the charge. It was a terrible jolt. Fezzik knew it was. But the grip on his windpipe grew ever tighter. Fezzik charged the boulder again spun, and again he knew the power of the blow the man in black had taken. But still the grip remained. Fezzik clawed at the man in black's arms. He pounded his giant fists against them. By now he had no air. Fezzik continued to struggle. He could feel a hollowness in his legs now. He could see the world beginning to pale. But he did not give up. He was the mighty Fezzik, lover of rhymes, and you did not give up no matter what. Now the hollowness was in his arms, and the world was snowing. Fezzik went to his knees. He pounded still but feebly. He fought still, but his blows would not have harmed a child. No air. There was no more air. There was no more anything. Not for Fezzik. Not in this world. I am beaten. I am going to die, he thought, just before he fell onto the mountain path. He was only half wrong. There is an instant between unconsciousness and death, and as the giant pitched onto the rocky path, that instant happened. And just before it happened, the man in black let go. He staggered to his feet and leaned against a boulder until he could walk. Fezzik lay sprawled, faintly breathing. The man in black looked around for a rope to secure the giant, gave up the search almost as soon as he'd begun. What good were ropes against strength like that? He would simply snap them. So the man in black made his way back to where he dropped his sword. He put it back on. 2 down, and the hardest one to go. Thanks for reading with me tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. And I think a battle of wits is about to begin. Have a good night.